Catus Maximus here, this time with the review of the Harbor Freight Bauer D-handle SDS rotary hammer. SDS is a special type of drive system like this, and it uses these special bits. There's known as SDS Plus 10 millimeter and SDS Max 19 millimeter, 3/4 inch and 3/8 inch. They are metric sizes. The standard was invented by Bosch. Hilti is a company that's credited with inventing or having first patent on what is known as electro-pneumatic rotary hammer. And that's how these operate. They actually do have a piston in there that's reciprocating back and forth like a reciprocating saw, in addition to a gear train that makes the bit turn. And so it literally is like a hammer hitting against the end of the bit while it's twisting it around. And before power tools, that's how you drilled holes in masonry, is there were manual, I forget what the bits are called, and you literally just hit it and then turned it a little bit and hit it again, and it took a real long time. Modern power tools, it's unbelievable. Actually, I do just a quick comparison between this and the Bosch Bulldog 11255 VSR. That would actually specifically be the Bulldog Extreme. So Harbor Freight says compare to, because they have a 7.3 amp motor, 5100 beats per minute, and 1.9 foot-pounds of impact energy, where the Bosch Bulldog, the original, they're now up to 8 amps. I actually really lucked out and have a made in Germany, one of the real early German-made Bulldog Extremes, 2 foot-pounds of energy, 5,800 beats per minute, and this is a 7.5 amp motor. But these are what you bank on, and that's the first thing I'll say in this review. If you are getting paid money to drill holes in concrete and you need to bank on it, you get a Bosch Bulldog. They're the industry standard. They're like the tool that everybody judges other rotary hammers against. Just like the top-end Milwaukee Super Sawzalls, or what other Sawzalls at least have to match up to. So it's a real stretch for Harbor Freight to say the Bauer is compared to that. The Bulldog is going to set you back 160, 180 bucks at a store. The Bulldog Extreme, I should say. Those are just extremely proven on the job site. Statistically speaking, I think they're probably one of the most reliable rotary hammers ever made. Hilti is who's credited with inventing the actual mechanism. Enough blabbing here, and we'll do a quick drilling comparison with this bit. It seems to do what most of the modern rotary hammers do for 80 bucks on the shelf at a regular price. 3 modes: a hammer-only mode, where it's just hammering, a hammer drill mode, as well as a drill-only mode. I'm not going to run it full bore here, just because this thing seems really high-strung, and I can understand there's a very number of reviews. Seems about around a 75%, maybe 80% satisfaction ratio, because this is an upgrade of the Chicago Electric. If you look at the Chicago Electric and you look at the Bauer, you can see it's the same moldings. So it's not like the Chicago Electric warm drive saw, which is like a knockoff of the skill saw. This is just an upgrade of their much lesser unit. And a lot of people having various electrical issues. So I'd recommend when you buy this, do it before you're about to take out a bunch of tile out of your bathroom or some other project like that. That way you can put a bunch of hard use on it within its 90-day warranty. And if you have a bad unit, at least it'll go out in that time period and you can swap it out. This did come with a case. Let's just try to get it in here. It's really just a thin polypropylene case, usual manual. Surprisingly enough, they continue the tradition of Harbor Freight tools coming with brushes, but if they ever last long enough to replace the brushes is another story. We have a depth rod, which is some of the weakest serrations I've ever actually seen. It's kind of surprising. I will say, oh, I can't even get that back in there. But they do include a bunch of cutouts, so you can put various chisels and bits snap into the case. And quite frankly, that's a little bit forward thinking, so I do appreciate that. Too bad the case is made out of polypropylene, which is a super soft plastic. That case I could see just throwing down on gravel and on the job site, catching a nail and just like tearing the whole side of that case open. I should also mention that the Bauer comes with a toilet plunger. That's actually not what this is. The manual, surprisingly enough, doesn't even explain what this is. But what this does is it goes in between the bit. It's sized for the shank of the bit. And so you put it in between the bit and the chuck. And when you're drilling overhead, you press against as you're drilling, it tries to catch at least a bunch of the dust, a majority of the dust that's falling down out of the hole, because it will fall within this relative radius here. And I think that's actually a pretty good idea, and wish actually other products, more manufacturers, include things like this. So I think we talked about comparing this to the Bulldog. The Bulldog has all sorts of stuff, like just much deeper screws. They use metal eyelets in the front case on the Bulldog. Let's just bring that back out here. The Bulldog has what is known as a rotating brush card. Electric motors that are brushed have timing. When they just reverse the wires to make them go backwards, they have a little bit less power. On the Bosch, it has a rotating brush card, which changes that timing as well as reversing the wires and gives you full power in reverse. Actually, while I have both of these on the table, let's just cut away. This is going to be pretty loud because I'm have a camera next to rotary hammers hammering through concrete. So be prepared. This is going to be loud, but let's just see how these drill. Okay, we're going to see how the Bauer does. Sorry about the traffic noise. It's just my situation. You always wear hearing protection with rotary hammers. They are pretty darn loud. I'll go ahead and start off with the Bauer. This is just a piece of cinder block. It is definitely a pretty soft piece of masonry material. It definitely isn't as hard as structural grade concrete or any kind of high strength concrete. But this is just to compare how fast a 5/8 hole is drilled by the Bauer versus the Bosch, even though they have almost exactly the same paper specs, and that the Bosch hasn't even been broken in yet. Additionally, you always want to make sure to put a little bit of grease on the shank of the bit itself, because as these hammer and slide back and forth, the little dogs that drive into these slots will wear. So you do want to have a little bit of grease handy just to periodically re-grease the shank. Okay, this will be loud. Here's the Bauer with the 5/8 Hilti bit. And here we have the 11255 VSR, the exact tool that they say compare to on their website. Let's see how it drills the very same hole in the same material using the same bit. Almost the same paper specs. That was faster, significantly. All right, we're back here. The Bosch Bulldog wasn't as much faster as I had initially exacerbated, although a larger, thicker chunk of that cinder block did break away out from the bottom of the hole, where the Bosch had to drill through an additional 1/4 inch of material. Just saying. And they're actually only advertising a very slight difference between these tools. The Bosch, of course, has its rafter hook and that kind of stuff, and they even have an Extreme Max with like a metal top, which some people say is maybe taken a little bit too far. Although this Bosch sure runs smooth. Let me just give you a sound. We'll do drill only, hammer drill, and then hammer only, just to hear the sound. I'm not doing it full power. And then back. And now for the Bauer on the same test. Definitely a bit noisier of a tool, alright. And you can hear it's still kind of dragging around. Man, those gears, those do not sound particularly happy, to tell you the truth. I don't know. Those gears did sound a little funky. They'll probably break in some, but we'll see if they really put just too little grease in there, or see exactly what's going on. I should mention it does use a standard push-in chuck. You just take the bit and you put it in and you just turn it around until it eventually locks in. Make sure it's in there. And surprisingly enough, I'll give a point to the Harbor Freight Bauer. I mean, it will work. It will be great for weekend warriors, people who need to do light jobs. Just remember, it's an upgraded version of the Chicago Electric, and you're paying $80 for a rotary hammer. And $80, and surprisingly enough, Harbor Freight still includes part breakdowns, but I'm not aware of anybody who's ever been able to order a part from them. But you can see the number of parts that are inside a rotary hammer, so that is a lot of stuff for $80 retail. And if you hunt around Harbor Freight, you can get them even for $64. So I feel pretty good for $64. They normally, with the 90-day warranty, when it's a purple tag, it's only a 5-day warranty. And there's actually a special orange tag, which is 50% off the purple tag. But it's only on stuff that hasn't sold for like 3 years and finally ends up, usually like their big inverters and stuff. So I'll finish it up with the undocumented feature. I'm sure I missed a few points, but I'm trying to keep my reviews a little more brief. Really, if you want to cover a lot of details, it takes some time, but I'm going to save a bit of that for the teardown. And I will do a teardown. It's just so complicated. It would make the review way too long. The undocumented features, like on the Bulldog, where they actually do advertise it here, where they have this little icon, rotation mode. That rotation mode is for when you are using chisels to dig up tile and plaster and stucco and that kind of stuff, where you put it in hammer mode, and the spindles will actually lock the chisel so you can do your work. But you may find that it's more comfortable, or you're getting into a corner where you may have the hammer drill or the rotary hammer like this, but you'll find that the tip is not at the right angle. If you put it right in between the hammer and rotary hammer position, you can want to change modes. If you're in drill mode, it will start jamming up a little bit past the middle mode if you try to go all the way over, and I'm sure some people are breaking it that way. And I should mention is also with drilling with rotary hammers, you just use a moderate pressure. Some people the handle is very terrible, and if you twist it up too tight, it just pulls the nut through the bottom part until it eventually falls off. But you don't put that much force. A rotary hammer is like an impact wrench. You're relying on an internal floating hammer, and it's doing most of the work. All you are trying to do is just make sure the end of the bit stays in contact with the bottom of the hole. Standing on these things actually slows down your drilling. You just want to have a nice firm pressure. Anyway, after realizing that, as well as having to bump the tool a little bit with the trigger to get it to engage its clutches so I could get it over to hammer mode, I can now actually demonstrate that when you put it in the middle position, once it's all the way over in hammer mode and you've bumped the trigger, that it will allow you to spin the chuck. And you can do that, return it to hammer mode, and it will lock up, but now we've got it horizontal. And surprisingly enough, uses a type of spline system in there, so you can do it at 45 degrees. Or, of course, vertically like this. And so I was actually surprised that it supported that function, and they didn't even advertise it. They probably didn't even know, and it just happens to be the nature of these types of 3-mode rotary hammers. Most will do that. Just remember not to blow out the gear change mechanism in there. If this switch doesn't want to go into the next mode, just go back to the one that it does want to go into, and just give the trigger just a little bit of a bump. Also, and if I didn't mention this earlier, I'll just hit on it again. It's really annoying where it just runs full power and forward, but when you put it in reverse, it has some kind of block, so it only gives you 3/4 power, and that seems, really counterintuitive. Anyway, I think I'll end this overly wordy review there. The Bauer is, it's about worth the $80. But it's just, its overall reliability is what I worry about. A lot of people are satisfied with it, but there is a vast difference in the amount of use that rotary hammers get. Bulldogs can be used until they're just about to have meltdown hot, and people use those day in and day out like that. I am sure the Bauer will not survive commercial skyscraper construction duty. But then again, it's really not so bad. Its overall performance really is pretty good, even if the gears don't sound super happy. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.